Every new game starts with a challenge. Some mornings I wake up excited, other days it's just about showing up. But every time there's that same feeling, a mix of nerves and curiosity. I've made a few games before, each one taught me something new. But this time, I want to share the process from the ground up, from zero to a full VR game. Welcome to building a VR game from zero to something on the MetaQuest store. I work with an incredible team, designers, programmers, artists, and together we're trying to build something fun, something that a kid in VR would love to play. We're keeping it small and focused. The goal isn't a massive game, it's to build a strong core experience. And so, yeah, with that, the first part is trying to convince the CEO of the company that making this game with this team is the right way. And so, yeah, we're going to have a meeting with him and we're going to see if this works out. I will sneak a recording for you guys and I will voice over what's happening in there too. But yeah, hopefully it should work out. But yeah, we will see if this works out and yeah, we'll take it from there. So, our first step was deciding what kind of experience we wanted. We threw around ideas, some too complex, some too simple, until one just felt right. And so, with trying to figure out what game idea we need to make, we also kind of need to scope out the engineering challenges and what do we need in order to deliver this game. And so, in addition to that, I was scoping out the requirements, the different types of problems that we might encounter, and how we could solve them potentially. And so, with our thoughts and ideas, we went to talk to him. But he seemed to have been a bit late. And so, while we were waiting for him, this is what we were doing instead. And so, for the first time in my life, I played Cut That Rope on a television. Strange times, but hey, it helped pass the time. And don't get me started on what else we were doing. We ended up with our concept artist just drawing people and their faces. And so this is one of our employees, Christopher's face. And then after that, we have another one of Abu's. And finally, after all that banter, he arrived. So that is Ashwin Jaishankar, the CEO of Autoverse. And yeah, we're about to tell him about the game that we plan to make. And so it was a pretty long meeting, and I will not take you guys through 1 to 2 hours or maybe 3 or 4 hours of this entire episode. But in a gist, what went down was we were kind of trying to understand where we are currently at with the previous game or the game that we were currently developing. We were trying to understand if it made sense to kind of continue working towards that or building something new, something that the players could understand and relate to more strongly towards. And so yeah, we were going down that discussion. We were trying to understand it not in terms of just understanding like gameplay, perspective and vision, but also we were trying to understand it in terms of an engineering sense and all the different types of caveats and problems that we were facing while building the previous game and how we can overcome it by starting this new game and building from a fresh mindset. And so you might be wondering, how are we able to understand if this game is going to do well or not? Well, so we've been trying to understand what kind of fits in the VR market with this current sort of trend that's been going on with games like Animal Company, Gorilla Tag kind of being the top games consistently for these kids. And we're trying to understand a bit, we're trying to kind of understand this sort of space or this fantasy that we would like to sell. And finally, I think the fantasy that we kind of found to be a sort of gap in the market is a sort of pirate fantasy or an RPG sort of fantasy. And so I think building on top of that kind of makes sense. And so yeah, that's kind of the sort of market research that we've been doing, and the market trends are kind of leaning towards sort of selling this fantasy to kids, right? And you want to kind of fulfill those fantasies. And so with many games out there right now, being a very famous game, fulfilling that sort of dinosaur fantasy. And we're just out there trying to kind of fulfill this pirate anime RPG fantasy. Yeah, we think it'll do well. Why we think it'll do well? That's because I think there's this great platform out there in that kids love playing games on, which is called Roblox. And a very famous game on Roblox is Blox Fruits. And so yeah, Blox Fruits is literally a One Piece fantasy. And so One Piece basically takes pirates, it takes anime, it takes RPGs, and it just combines it into one. And yeah, we're planning to basically make Blox Fruits in VR. Let me break it down for you. Well, we're building Blox Fruits in VR. And so, for those of you who don't know what Blox Fruits is, it basically is the One Piece anime fantasy turned into a game where you either become a master swordsman or you become a powerful Blox Fruit user. And so this fantasy fulfills that anime role-playing game in which you can do whatever you want, you can fight, you can learn crazy new moves and skills. And we seem to have not found a game that exists like this on the Meta store or like exists in VR right now. And so that's why we think this game is gonna do really well. So yeah, that's the game that we're making. And hopefully by the end of the game, when people play it, you end up looking like this guy. And so after all these discussions and talks, we finally got started with making a plan. And a small enough plan that we could achieve in a couple of weeks to quickly test out our core loop of what our game would be like. Trying to fulfill that anime fantasy, trying to test and understand whether there is scope for this in the VR market, and this is something that kids would play hours on end for. Okay, so now that you guys know what the game is about and what we're going to be building for a bunch of small little children to love and play, how are we going to make it? And that's where me as a what am I? I'm a programmer. Me as a programmer will show you sort of the tech stack that we're going to use to build this entire game, as well as kind of how we're going to go about making this game. And so it's kind of an engineering challenge in the sense that we're also making two games at the same time. And in order to kind of facilitate two games being made, you would want to kind of share a lot of resources together. And so how we're going to do that is quite an interesting question that you guys have raised. And so I, being the great person that I am, will of course tell you how I'm about to do this entire thing. Cut to that. Yeah, now that I think about it, that version of Alistair in that previous section was kinda sus. But anyways, so the tech stack that we are going to be using is Photon Fusion, which is a very well-known multiplayer platform that you use for building out games, especially the more common games in VR like Animal Company, Gorilla Tag, and so on and so forth. Similarly, PlayFab is going to be a strong key provider for us in terms of storing our player data, like their name and all other important details. Similarly, we'll be using PlayFab in order to track analytics, metrics, and kind of understand what our players are doing and kind of gauge what to do next. And finally, the most important thing, we will be building out this game in the Unity game engine, which is what we've been building games throughout this entire journey. And with that, our core template kind of revolves around building based on these three things. We need to focus on building out a modular approach, something that can do plug and play, as past Alistair said, and quick and easy to use. And so this is my list of things to make, and that's probably going to be happening next week, where you guys will get to see development for the first time. Woo! Fun times! Let's go! So yeah, this was episode 1 of building a game. Maybe not building a game, trying to get started with building a game. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you really liked it, do hit subscribe. And I'll see you in episode 2. So today is a Saturday, and yeah, I think yesterday marked the end of the entire week 1 of sort of building this game, and I honestly thought we would do a bit more than sort of just ideating what the game is about. But I'm really glad that we were able to figure out this whole sort of premise and loop of what we're trying to build. I'm glad about that. I'm really glad that the team as a whole took it really well as to what we want to be, what I want to build, and what I think could work in this VR space. And yeah, and I think we also did great in terms of kind of figuring out what we want to build as our engineering base, and I think that's really great. We figured out a common template that we would like to share between both the games. And yeah, I think it's been a great week full of wins. Of course, I do wish that we were able to kind of make some progress in development in terms of like getting more features in, but i think I think it's fair to say that we were able to achieve maybe 60% of the goals that we had this week, and I think that's completely fair. And yeah, I think next week is going to be another terrific week out there. And yeah, I think we got this. Like, I'm excited to see what we're going to build. It's exciting that we have this new idea, and yeah, I can't wait to see what we build as a team. So yes, there were of course some tough moments in this week, especially when it came to sort of bringing the team together and sort of like pitching this idea, especially to one of the founders, and getting him to get convinced by it, which was something I have never done in my life, but truly it was something fun to do. Not, maybe at that moment it was tough as hell, but yes, I think it's something that I think someday people would enjoy doing that. But yeah, I think that's a wrap for week one. I'm really glad with the progress we've made, and yeah, like hopefully week two, I actually have some stuff to show you guys. Yeah, with that, this ends episode one of From Zero to VR Game. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, beautiful. I love this.